Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to Geography. Today, we will start with the second section in the second chapter, which is about water on Earth. You can find this lesson on pages 30 to 34 in the book. Today, we're going to discuss mainly about the types of water on Earth and about the water problems and the water benefits. As you know that water is important because it's essential to life on earth. Humans can live without food, but they can't live without water. For example, a human being can live only 3 days without water, but it's possible to live for a few weeks without food. Water is especially valuable for human health, medicine, agriculture, and industry. And really, it means a lot when Audrey Hepburn said, "Water is life and clear water means health." So, guys, just remember to use your self assessment sheet to check the objectives from 5 to 10 before we start our lesson. So, by the end of this session, you should be able to explain the differences between the salt water and fresh water and how they make up Earth's water supply. Also, you will be able to explain the movement of water from the Earth's surface to the atmosphere and back. In addition, you will be able to explain the role of water, the role that the water plays in our lives. Before we start, let's test your prior knowledge. I'm going to list the 3 multiple choice questions, write down the answers on an index card, and at the end of the session, we're going to check how many correct answers did you get. So let's start by the first question. What is fresh water? What is the surface water? About 97% of the Earth's water is salt water. This water contains high level of salt and other minerals. It is unsafe to drink. Is this true or false? Throughout this lesson, we're going to learn about many keywords that are related to our daily life: fresh water, glaciers, surface water, groundwater, and the water cycle. Make sure to write these keywords on your ESS copybook because while we're proceeding with our lesson, you have to write down the definition of each of these keywords in your own words on your ESS copybook. So let's start now. Water covers some 2/3 of the planet. And if you think of the different uses of water, we use the water to cook, to clean, we drink it, and we grow crops with water. Also, we use water to generate electricity, to travel from one place to another. It is also used for recreation. Water is perhaps the most important and abundant resource on the earth. Understanding Earth's water supply and how it affects our lives is an important part of geography. Now we will start listing the different kinds of water on Earth. We're going to start by the salt water. About 97% of the Earth's water is salt water, but unfortunately, it's unsafe to drink because of the high levels of the salt. In general, the salt water is found in the Earth's oceans. And as you know that oceans cover some of 75% of the Earth's surface. So we can find huge supply resources for salt water, but it's unsafe to drink. Also, some of the salt water, you can find it in some of the Earth's lakes. For example, the Great Salt Lake in Utah is an example of a saltwater lake. As the salt and other minerals have collected in the lake, which has no outlet, the water became salty ones. The second type of water is what we call the fresh water. This water is the water that is without salt, but it makes up only 3% of our water supply. Most of the Earth's water is locked in glaciers, which are large areas of slow-moving ice, and in the ice of the Arctic and the Antarctic regions. However, most of the fresh water that we use every day is found in lakes, rivers, and under the Earth's surface. So, one form of fresh water is the surface water. Surface water is water that is found in the Earth's streams, rivers, and lakes. It may seem that there is a great deal of water in our lakes and rivers, but only a tiny amount of the Earth's water supply is provided by the surface water, because the surface water represents less than 1% of the water supply. So, as we mentioned before, streams, rivers, and lakes are common sources of the fresh water. We should not forget to mention that sometimes streams are formed when precipitation collects in a narrow channel and flows toward the ocean. What is precipitation? Precipitation is the water that falls to the Earth's surface as rain, snow, or hail, for example. Streams usually join together to form rivers. Any smaller stream or river that flows into a larger stream or river is called a tributary. An important point to mention here also is that most of the Earth's available fresh water is stored underground or under the Earth's surface. So, when precipitation falls to the earth, most of it is absorbed into the ground, filling the spaces in the soil and rock. So, the underground water sheath will start to be formed. How can we get the groundwater? Mainly by digging the wells. Now, what about the water cycle? Keep in your mind that the earth doesn't lose any drop of water. But water circulates from the Earth's surface to the atmosphere and back again. So a drop of water may be evaporated from a certain place and falls down back to the Earth's surface in another place. Water is the only substance on Earth that occurs naturally as a solid, liquid, and gas, or what we call the water vapor. So, in general, the water cycle is the movement of water from the Earth's surface to the atmosphere and back, and it is driven initially by the sun's energy. We will watch a video that shows you the different phases of the water cycle.
You may think every drop of rain falling from the sky or each glass of water you drink is brand new, but it has always been here and is a part of the water cycle. At its most basic, the water cycle is how water continuously moves from the ground to the atmosphere and back again. As it moves through this cycle, it changes forms. Water is the only substance that naturally exists in 3 states on Earth: solid, liquid, and gas. Over 96% of total global water is in the ocean, so let's start there. Energy from the sun causes water on the surface to evaporate into water vapor, a gas. This invisible vapor rises into the atmosphere where the air is colder and condenses into clouds. Air currents move these clouds all around the Earth. Water drops form in clouds, and the drops then return to the ocean or land as precipitation. Let's say this time it's snow. The snow will fall to the ground and eventually melts back into a liquid and runs off into a lake or river, which flows back into the ocean, where it starts the process again. That's just one path water can take through the water cycle. Instead of snow melting and running off into a river, it can become a part of a glacier and stay there for a long, long time. Or rain can seep into the ground and become groundwater, where it's taken up by plants. It can then transpirate to gas directly through the leaves and return to the atmosphere. Or instead of being taken up by the plant, the groundwater can work its way up to a lake, river, spring, or even the ocean. As you can see, the water cycle can be a very complicated process, and all its paths through Earth's ecosystems are complex and not completely understood. Water is essential to life on Earth, and fresh water is a limited resource for a growing world population. Changes in the water cycle can impact everyone through the economy, energy production and use, health, recreation, transportation, agriculture, and drinking water.
So the water cycle starts by evaporation. Evaporation is the process where the water is going to change from liquid state to gaseous state. Under the action of the solar energy given by the sun, the liquid particles are going to change into gas particles. So the liquid water will change into water vapor. So the water on the surface of all the water bodies of the earth will be evaporated due to the action of the sun's energy, or because of the sun's energy, because the sun is going to increase the energy of the water particles, the liquid water particles, and then the liquid water particles can escape out of the surface of water as gaseous particles. So liquid will change into water vapor. Now after that, condensation process will start, where the rising gas or water vapor will cool down and condense. And then the water vapor will change into tiny liquid droplets to form what we call the clouds. Now later, if the formed water droplets were heavy enough, they will precipitate, or they will fall back to the earth as rain, snow, sleet, or hail. Some of the water that will be falling on the ground or on the earth's surface will be absorbed as groundwater, and the excess of the water that was not absorbed as groundwater will flow over the land and will be collected in streams, rivers, and oceans, as you see here on the given figure. What are the major problems that we are facing with water? The most important problem is what we call the water shortage. So many people are facing what we call the lack of fresh water, and many places face water shortages as a result of droughts or long periods of lower than normal precipitation rates. So in most areas where the precipitation rate is very low, or where it doesn't rain unless with a very low rate, these areas will be suffering from water shortages. Water shortage is also caused by overusing the water and wasting the water. Even when the water is available, it may not be healthy, or it may not be clean to be consumed or used. So water pollution is a serious problem, especially if the chemicals and the household wastes make their way into the streams and the rivers. So they can contaminate the major water supply resources. Polluted water can carry diseases, and these diseases may harm the humans, the plants, the animals, and many serious diseases they were transmitted because of the contaminated water, such as the malaria, Ebola, and many other different diseases. In certain places may suffer from what we call water flood. Flooding is another water problem that affects people all around the world. One example of dangerous flooding occurred in Bangladesh in 2004. The floods there destroyed roads and schools and left some 25 million people homeless. So imagine how much a flood can be a devastating once. Now, let's return back to positivity. What about water benefits? We can't live without water, and this is so obvious. So water does more than just quench our thirst. It provides us with many benefits, such as food and power, and even we use it for recreation. So you know that water is, or the most important thing about water is that it provides us with the food to eat. But water is also an important source of energy. So in many countries, they used to build dams in order to produce or to use the flowing water energy and change it into electric energy. So water can be an important source for what do we call clean energy, or the ones that doesn't cause pollution for our environment. Water also provides us with recreation. So rivers, lakes, and oceans make it possible for us to swim, to fish, to surf, or to sail a boat, for example. I know that recreation is not critical for our survival, but it does make our lives richer and more enjoyable. On your ESS copybook, just take 3 minutes, try to draw down this graphic organizer and to list and identify the different stages of the water cycle. Try to think about the major problem that you are suffering in your own community and explain about it. Once you are done with writing your answers on your copybook, just join the Zoom session. See you. Bye-bye. Thank you.